Hey guys, Hare here, and welcome to episode 6 of Hare and Tortoise. You're joined by myself, Harry, and Lee again. And yeah, today we're going to talk about 3 topics, all pretty interesting to be fair, all very different as well. Number one's going to be the Parkrun return framework, which came out last week, outlining kind of the rules and changes Parkrun's going to have as it comes back, hopefully in the next few months across Europe. Then, second topic, we're going to talk about my fell race experience at the weekend at Lava in Cumbria. And finally, we're going to talk very interesting topic. Time in the day is better for training. We're going to do a poll as well on Instagram to see which time you like to train more, if it's the morning or the afternoon. But yeah, there's obviously some pros, some cons to training in the morning and the afternoon, and we'll just go through them a little bit from what we found and what we know. But yeah, we'll start with the Parkrun return framework. So yeah. I'll just outline a few points, then we'll maybe get into it in a bit more detail. So yeah, the timing from now on is going to be virtual. So basically, all the volunteers at the end are going to use a phone to scan you in. Again, all of these kind of points are just kind of decrease contact time, so it should just be a lot smoother. You know, often that finishing tunnel, you can be in there for, quite a long time, especially in the kind of thing. The pre-event briefings, which can go on for a while, especially if people have, milestones or birthdays or it's first run, they're going to be limited to 2 minutes. So nice and snappy, again, decreasing contact time. There's not going to be any number limits or waves, which is quite interesting. They came out and said, Parkrun's good because it's simple, and adding waves and number limits just isn't practical. Because how would you choose, who gets to each event and that kind of thing? No date yet. They haven't given any kind of clue when that might be, whether it's the end of this year or next year. We'll just have to see on that one. There's going to be no necessary contact, so anything like high fives or if you want to hug someone at the end of a run, you never know. That's going to be cut out, understandably. And then pinch points are going to remain. So anything like a bridge or when you're overtaking someone, they're still going to remain because, again, it's just not practical on a lot of courses around the UK to kind of remove them completely. They're the main there. Is there anything there that kind of strikes you as interestingly or you'd like to go into in more detail?
I think the no limit of how many can participate is very interesting, especially because obviously then social distancing is obviously going to go out the window. Because you're not, especially at the start point, you're not going to be able to keep everyone separate. So it kind of makes me wonder at the same time, when are they actually going to be able to implement this? Because at the moment, obviously, unless you're wearing masks, you're supposed to by law keep at least 1.5 meters, 2 meters apart, which obviously isn't going to be very practical for a mass start on a park run. So then it kind of makes me think, well, we probably then won't see this until at least next year, if the way things are still going, and with things like potential seasonal flu and stuff coming in the winter, we might be a while before we even see Parkrun come back anyway.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like even small like events, even like Penrith in the Lake District, 500 people, especially as it's built up in the last few years, and some of the London events have sometimes over 1,000 runners, especially Bushy Park. So yeah, it's not really practical, especially as the numbers kind of, cases are going up in some areas and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll just have to see. I mean, it is a positive step to hear they are kind of making a move, I guess, and having some kind of guidelines. But we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, obviously, they're making steps to try and roll it back out, but I think that their idea is very contradictory because you've got. All these things are trying to minimize contact time, but that's kind of pointless when you're all stood right next to each other for, even if it's just for a couple of minutes, everyone's breathing a bit heavier because they've warmed up and all that sort of thing. And obviously one of the biggest concerns at the moment is transmitting it through, breath and things like that. Hence why we're wearing masks everywhere else. So you've got, 2-minute brief and minimizing contact time at the end and all that sort of stuff. But like you said, you've still got pinch points where you can breathe on each other. You've still got hanging around at the start, even if it is just for 2 minutes of lots of people. So it'll be interesting then what sort of, track and trace they're going to have and things like that in terms of, they're going to take everyone's contact details for that run. And if then someone reports it, are they going to then be the ones responsible for getting in touch with every single person that was at that race that day? Because obviously then, it's their duty of care to make sure that everyone understands that if someone reports they've got corona and they were at Parkrun within a week or two of getting sort of tested positive, then they're going to obviously have to get in touch with every single person that participated in that race. I think it's a lot of stuff there that, in my eyes, almost makes it kind of a bit too much work to carry on. But hey, I'm not a big race organizer, so they'll obviously have a bigger picture than me in terms of how they're going to roll it out.
I mean, yeah, it is. At least it's some kind of steps going forward, because it couldn't keep exactly as it is. I guess the point to make is generally science seems to say outdoors isn't as bad as indoors. I know obviously it can still be transmitted, but it's not as bad. And I guess I don't know if this is even kind of practical, but could the start people wear a mask, the briefing, or just before they start, and then quickly put it in the pocket? That could happen, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you are right though in terms of obviously outdoors being, sort of better in terms of minimizing the transmission. But you think, at least from my minimal experience of doing park runs, you are all sort of kind of right on top of each other. It's not like you are kind of a little bit apart from each other, and you've got a lot of people, certainly within breathing distance of each other.
Yeah.
And you are right. Obviously, it is dose response seems to be again where kind of the research is going in terms of contracting it. So it's making sure you got lots of droplets or whatever on the skin or on the mouth, things like that. But yeah, I think there's still an element of risk there. So like I said, it'd be interesting. One, if they do it, are we even going to see it anytime soon? I'd be very surprised if that was before the end of this year. And then two, obviously with that, are you going to get a lot of people doing it, or are we going to get people that's still a bit cautious, especially if you are all hanging around in a kind of mass start? It'd be interesting to see.
I did do a poll actually. I said, would you feel safe doing parkrun again if it came back? And I think it was about 83 to 84% said they would. So, I mean, that's obviously sounds a lot, but that's still 16 out of 100 that wouldn't want to do, which is totally understandable. And another thing with parkrun as well, because it's not chipped, like your time is when you do the course, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
People want to be as close to the start line as possible. So again, that doesn't kind of help, does it?
No, when you've got everyone bustling for the start, and obviously that initial start where everyone's trying to jostle for that front position and take over each other and things like that. There's lots of contact there as well. There'll be people brushing past each other, touching each other to try and get to the start and all that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, and another interesting point is the pinch points and overlapping. A lot of courses, like Penrith is a 2-lap course, but a lot of courses can be 3, even 4 or 5-lap courses.
Yeah.
So obviously the front runners will inevitably lap some of the runners.
Yeah.
And it's hard to kind of mitigate the problems with that. So it's another problem really.
Well, I've done the Keswick one, and at the moment it's just an out and back. Well, I don't think it's out and back anymore because I think they'd put it back into Fitz Park just while they're finishing rebuilding the old railway. But when I did it, the railway was still open, so it was an out and back. So again, that'd be interesting if they go back to using that route, because there was so many people there that by the time I got to the turnaround point and was coming back, there was still a lot of runners coming at me. But again, there was no real space. It wasn't like you were stuck to one side of the track. It was everyone kind of just free for all it. So you were weaving in and out of people. So again, there's a lot of potential there for contact and getting up and close and personal with people.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to be realistic, and as you said, I really can't see it happening before the end of the year, and it might be a few months after that. Obviously, with the winter season, everything like that, as you say, with the flu, it could be, it could be Easter. You never know. You just don't know what's around the corner, really, do you?
Yeah, that's it. I just think, again, obviously they've put something out to try and give a glimmer of hope, which is I totally understand. But yeah, it'd be interesting. Like I said, I'd be very surprised if that was rolled out before the end of the year.
Yeah. But there has been some positive race experiences already. I saw Run Through UK did, I think it was Tatton Park 10K on the weekend. And that had, I don't know how many runners it had, but it was doing waves of 50. So basically you'd have a starting spot like lined up in 200 people, and then they'd set off waves of 6. Like you just walk forward, and you'd be lined up in kind of speed order, so the fastest at the front. So that would kind of limit overtaking, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that was a huge success, apparently. Like, no complaints, everyone seemed to be happy. So it definitely can be done, but again, Parkrun's such a mass event.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one, isn't it?
That's it, especially because of the nature of Parkrun, where it's kind of you just tip up. Obviously you've got your barcode or whatever, but you don't necessarily have to have a barcode and stuff. So, it is kind of a bit more of a free for all compared to some of the more organized races, where you are signed up based on ability and all that sort of stuff. And I think that will be the new norm for a lot of races, like you said, is setting up in waves and stuff like that, but based on ability, like we talked about last week with obstacle course racing and stuff like that. The wave system seems to work well, but we can just take it a step further by saying, well, the earlier wave should be reserved for the people that are aiming for this time, middle waves for this time, back waves for this time, like I said, just to minimize too much overtaking. And plus then you're kind of guaranteeing that you're going to be in waves that are fairly competitive for you.
Yeah, there is another slight problem, I guess, with having the times. Some races have done it so it's basically only the sub-elite can take part, or you have to be a certain time. So obviously, some people say that's a bit kind of elitist, and it removes a certain part of the running population out of races, which is totally understandable. But I guess ultimately they've got to do something, and that might be the only way they can kind of do it, really.
Yeah, and obviously there's different capacities for different races. So, if there's obviously a limited capacity, then I guess, the easiest way for them to be would be just sort of those that are looking for the faster times and stuff, just from an organizational standpoint. So you're not having lots of people around for long periods of time, waiting for the fast runners and the slow runners to finish. I think, again, it's just for some of us, we're just going to have to deal with maybe not having as many races as we are used to.
Yeah, definitely. But look, there's positives. Like, a lot of people are, not training. But if you can, it's a good chance to really focus on speed. You're not going to be distracted by races every week. You can really try and train hard if that's something you want to do. Obviously, it is a bit tricky without the races to stay motivated. Uh, but it is a good opportunity if you can.
Yeah, again, it's a chance for you to review your goals. There's a chance to, like I said, figure out what you maybe want in terms of developing weaknesses and stuff like that. Obviously, there's lots of virtual races going on. So I've just signed up for the virtual Cumbria Way race next month. So I was already planning to do the Cumbria Way next month anyway, and I just realised that they're doing it virtually. So between the 10th and the 20th of September. So I'm gonna go and give that a bash. So,
How long's that?
73 miles.
And you're going to do it in one day, or you're going to cover it over the?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it continuously. So the goal is to try and do it in under 24 hours. But even if I don't, I will still carry on going. I'm not gonna stop to sleep or anything like that. So
Brilliant.
I'll just have my partner Jane to give me a bit of support at a couple of key points. But I'll just do it continuously.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I look forward to seeing how you do on that.
So I've used a virtual race or virtual sort of challenge for this month to try and just again keep me motivated to keep the mileage going and all that stuff. So I think at least the running community and race organisers have been very proactive with that side of things. There's been loads of virtual stuff, and I know that's not as good as a face-to-face race, but at least it's something to try and keep us motivated and on track.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. And of course, if anyone's watching wants to give any views on Parkrun return framework, or anything on that kind of thing, or if you've had a race, maybe you're at Tatton Park, you did the 10K. If you let us know either in the comment section or on Instagram, that'd be awesome. But yeah, I guess there's a good chance to move on to my experience at the weekend. For those of you that don't know, I did a Lava Fell run, which was about half a marathon. My first fell, yeah, they did it in waves of 6. It was very, very hot. It was quite challenging. Luckily, I was just doing it with a few friends, so it was fairly laid back. But yeah, it was good. Like, it was a bit different to a usual race, obviously, setting off in waves of 6 every few minutes. And we had to wear a face mask when we registered, and then at the end when we were collecting our beer or whatever it was at the end. And yeah, there were no water stations on the whole thing, which was tricky for some, because obviously you can't touch it, basically. But yeah, it was pretty smooth. Obviously, the volunteers were out for a long time in the heat, like 5-6 hours, because I think the first wave set off at 10, and last people before. So I guess the tricky part, especially, they're doing it for free. But yeah, apart from that, it was pretty smooth and a good little return to racing.
So what was your time?
Oh, my time. If it wasn't that, it's 2 hours 27. As I said, I was just doing it with a few friends, but
Yeah, that.
it was.
You used them as your excuse, didn't you?
I guess so. Yeah, why not? But yeah, there were some good runners. To be fair, I'm not sure if you know Jimmy James Douglas,
No, I've not come across him before.
Johnny Cox. Do you
I've
know
heard of
him?
Johnny Cox.
Yeah, them two were in the top three, so there were a lot of good runners there.
Uh,
Um, but yeah, I think I'll stay away from the fells for a little bit. To be fair.
how'd you find it? How'd you find the terrain and stuff? Because I'm guessing you've been on road pretty much for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I do mix in the odd fell, like nothing big, but like Askham fell, whatever. So it wasn't, as I said, I was with friends, so it wasn't like I was going 100% all out. But obviously a bit of a challenge, like long hills and thing. I think the lads found it a bit of a shock at points as well, but it was good. It was a good little return and nice to kind of see them, I guess.
So your organisation opinion was that on point, was it? So you felt everything worked well in terms of how they set up the start, set up the end and stuff like that. And did you miss the water points or did you just carry your own stuff?
Well, they couldn't do water points. They couldn't give it out.
Yes.
Um,
What I mean, did you miss them? Did you
oh
miss
right, yeah.
not having them there, or did you just carry your own stuff, or did you just kind of grizz it without any water? Or
Yeah, so I didn't take anything, but I was running with three other people basically.
you
One
let
of
them
them
carry it for you?
brought well, all right, to be fair, I didn't else actually. But one of them brought because they're basically very kind of new to running, I guess, in a polite way. So one of them bought like 3 liters of running, 3 liters of water. So obviously, I said, "How much water you got there?" and asked to carry it halfway through. It was so heavy, I couldn't believe it. So that put quite a lot of strain on him. So he was covered for water, and the others brought a little bit, but not much. But yeah, definitely lessons learned for a few of the group anyway. But
Uh,
yeah, it was good. The volunteers were all good, apart from one that was criticizing some walkers at one point. But we can forget about that. But yeah, it was good. It was good.
so, what was I going to say? The finish then. Did you get a medal?
No, no medals, just a beer. Unless we missed some medal. I'm pretty sure there were no medals. Yeah. Uh,
Was the beer a custom beer for the race, or was it just a random ale or something?
it was like an ale. Yeah. I mean, I'm not an ale person, so I didn't
Nah,
really.
that's a
I don't
poor show, man. They needed at least a medal, or at least a label on the beer that says the race name or something.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there wasn't anything like that. Yeah. But I guess again we can't touch. But then we touched the beer. I don't know.
That's what I mean. You would have thought first race back since Corona, they would have gone like, yeah, here's a special like I beat Corona race medal or something like that. Just
Yeah.
celebrate. It could be everyone be like, look, this is the first race medal I got since coronavirus started.
Yeah.
Because like you
That's
said, it was one of
true.
the first races in the UK, wasn't it? Fell race wise.
Yeah. Unless, yeah. I think it was the first one actually.
Yeah, I
A
remember you
few
saying.
people
So
said.
you would have thought they would have taken advantage of that and kind of jazzed it up a little bit. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, because they have like fell running officials come down to kind of study it and see if it worked well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no medal unless we miss. I'm pretty sure there were medals anyway.
I'll
Um,
have to ask someone else. I know because I know Wacker did it as well, didn't he?
yeah, yeah, I saw him.
Last game, see if he got a medal or not.
He finished like 40 minutes before we started, so he was all good. But
Uh,
uh, but yeah, overall it was a solid event. So
yeah, I mean, it sounded like I said in terms of the wage and stuff, sounded well organised. So I think that's a good start to running race. And obviously, like I said, the other one, that 10K, sounded like it was a positive start to getting people back into racing. So, like you said, it can be done. It's just one of them where we're obviously not going to have as bigger groups as we're used to and all that stuff. But that's just the way we're going to have to deal with it now. Like I said, it's like the same at the gym. We're running classes, but instead of having 15 to 20 people in, we've got 8.
mm,
It's that's just the way it is for now, and obviously we just have to adapt to that. So, but that sounds awesome, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and it was a nice day for it. I know
yeah,
people
yeah.
have been complaining about the heat, but I think I'd rather that than it was just hammering it down for 2 hours.
You know what? I'd honestly prefer rain to like 20 when it gets to 24, 25. I'd genuinely prefer rain.
Give me 30, 40 degree heat any day.
Really?
Yeah,
But
like
it
I said,
is
I'd much
it's
prefer to do that because I find it easier to manage the situation. So, hydration and all that stuff is really easy to maintain. You just
yeah.
make sure you obviously you wipe your sweat down, blah blah blah. You take on fluids, all that sort of stuff. I find that much easier to manage. And if you're sort of acclimated to it correctly, it doesn't hinder your performance too much. Whereas if it's
Yeah.
absolutely hammering it down like classic Lake District weather, you've got obviously
Mm.
then your technical jackets to think about and all that stuff if you're out there for a long period of time and all that has to be on
Well,
point.
yeah.
Sometimes they don't work and everything starts getting wet and all that sort of stuff. Yeah,
I,
I
I,
I much prefer the heat.
I guess you're approaching it from a more kind of ultra running kind of view.
Yes,
So
definitely. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, that
yeah.
makes sense to be
Like
fair.
if it was a 10K, then obviously, to be fair, if it was a 10K, it wouldn't bother me either. I suppose
Yeah,
because even if I was just running in a t-shirt, I could run in a t-shirt for a 10K, no problems, even if it was hammering it down. So, yeah, I suppose it would be a little bit more comfortable at least, wouldn't it, running in the rain for that sort of distance?
yeah. No, I love the rain. Like the only weather I don't want is the wind, but because it literally can slow you down, can't it? But
Yeah,
yeah, the rain's not too bad. But yeah.
that sounds like a good event, mate.
Yeah, it was all good, and hopefully there'll be some more. I'm not sure if there's any more local ones coming up, but I'll have a look.
Yeah.
I'll have a look. But yeah, we'll move on to the last topic anyway. So you thought of this one, which is brilliant. So when do you prefer to train, basically?
So I can't take credit for thinking of it in terms of obviously it's something that I've looked at a while ago,
Yeah,
but I've put a sort of a thing out in my Facebook group that I run for runners, and just asked what sort of topics they would like to hear more about and stuff like that. And one of them commented and said, is there any kind of um, research behind what's the best time to train or run? So I thought
yeah,
we'd chuck it in for today. So yeah.
yeah. A brilliant topic. Like I've done a bit of research myself just in the last few days. It's quite interesting actually. I didn't realize there was such a variance in like the benefits and cons for each one. I'm not sure how like valid they are in terms of like research and that kind of thing. But a few of the kind of main points I found, you can obviously come in and say what you want on these topics. I found a lot of the sites said basically the later you leave it, the more likely your body's at the kind of ideal temperature, I guess, for performing, and your muscles are all warmed up and that kind of thing. There's a lower risk of injury because of that. And they said it's better for muscle building as well. And even if you go further on into the evening, your muscles are even like more ready for action, and sprinting and that kind of thing becomes even better. A lot of the morning runs, the websites were saying it's good for mental health. Like obviously you get the endorphins in the morning that can set you up for the rest of the day. Good to fight kind of well, yeah, just made that point, mental health issues as well because of that. And also fat burning. If you run fasted as well, there's some science that supports this and some that doesn't. But running the morning fasted can be good for fat burn, or at least low for the rest of the day. Um, they're just some of the pros.
So yeah, I mean, the thing is, obviously we'll go in through these points, but one thing we've got to realize straight away is that the body is very adaptable. So even
Yeah,
though, we may say that the optimum core temperature is at this time, etc., that, people are going to perform better at that. Obviously, I'm sure there's plenty of elite level runners out there that only run in the mornings.
yeah,
Or do their training sessions early in the day purely because their lifestyle and their work dictates to them that that is the only time that they can train. And for me personally, especially like I hate training in sort of after work and stuff like that because I'm less
yeah,
motivated to do so, especially when it comes to running. I'd much prefer to train in the morning. And again, I've obviously increased performance. I've gotten fitter and stronger and things like that. So yes, obviously there's a what we call the optimum, what research suggests in terms of core body temperature being at its sort of highest around sort of 5 o'clock in the evening, but again, that's not practical for everyone, just like we talked about with the sleep guidance. And the thing is, with a lot of articles, that they kind of say these little sound bites and stuff like that, and these quick quotes to make you think, oh yeah, so if I train at 5, I'm going to be way better than I am now. So straight away they think that all of a sudden that if I just change the time I train, I'm going to be fitter.
Yeah.
Whereas you've still got to put the effort in, you've still got to have a structured training program, you've still got to have consistency and all that sort of thing. So again, it's just taking it with a pinch of salt. That if you train at a particular time and it works for your schedule, then stick with it. Obviously, if you do want to experiment, like you said, especially if you do feel, all right, okay, I have got some consistent training, I've got a structured program. Is there any way that I can get a bit more out of that program? That's when we can start saying, okay, well, if you are training in the morning, maybe look at training in the evening, especially for your tempo sessions, your interval sessions, and things like that. Like you said, where you're getting a little bit more out of the muscles.
Yeah, no, definitely. Again, I agree. I think it's more kind of a micro change that you can make. Like, obviously, the main things you want to focus on are getting the work in whenever it is, getting the sleep in, getting the nutrition, the main kind of macro things.
Yeah.
This thing make a difference, but as you said, it's kind of variable and your body's going to adapt anyway. I'm similar to you. Like, I pretty much every day will run in the morning. There's the odd day for whatever reason I can't do that, or I might run in the morning and the afternoon if it's a double day.
Yeah.
But yeah, usually, for several reasons, I like not getting it done, but if I wake up, get the running, and yeah, it just sets you up for the rest of the day. But there's loads of points on different websites, and some of them are different. But it's whatever's good for you, right?
Yeah, I think, like you said, the key takeaways from the morning runs is, is the endorphins setting you up for the day. The disadvantage is what a lot of sort of websites and research say is more to do with increased injury risk and lethargy and all that sort of stuff. But again, we've got to delve deeper into that. They don't give any context. What do they mean by increased injury risk?
Yeah.
One of the websites I was looking at then commented on because of things like slippy roads and stuff in the morning, but which is obviously only seasonal and it doesn't always apply to everyone depending on which area you run. So straight away there, for some people, there potentially aren't any real risks to running in the morning, only sort of advantages of mood and stuff like that. And in terms of the evening, yes, obviously we're talking about core body temperature and stuff, and they were saying that it's good for muscle building. Now, I'd argue that that's not the case. I mean, there is no optimum time for muscle building because at the end of the day, muscle building is all about the stimulus you give it. So whether that's through strength work, through bodybuilding type training, or obviously hill sprints, stuff like that. As long as you're applying that stimulus and recovering from it adequately, then I would say timing wise doesn't really affect that terms of sort of muscle building. Because if it did, then we'd see bodybuilders be training in the evenings all the time rather than a lot of them training in the morning. I mean, you look at people like The Rock. He trains at like 4 a.m, lifts weights, goes back to sleep, gets back up, lifts some more weights. But most of his sort of intense training sessions are done in the morning, and he doesn't seem to be struggling to build any muscle. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's really interesting topic, and as you said, like it is really, really variable. Like, if you're finding that you run, well, maybe not midnight, but just something that's maybe not considered normal, whatever other people are doing, but is working for you, then just go with it. Like your body's more than likely adapted to it, and that's best for you. So
I think it'd
I'd
be good to throw
never.
out. Sorry, you go on.
I was just going to say, I'd never, if I was coaching someone, say you have to go at this certain time. I just wouldn't do it. Obviously, there's days that I'd say you need to train, but I wouldn't pick a time. It's just not, we don't know enough to know would be ideal. It's a tricky one.
And yeah, and the other thing as well is that for most of us, we have lifestyle that potentially dictates when we can train. Like I said before, jobs, other commitments, leisure activities, and all that sort of stuff as well. So for a lot of us, it's like even if we did want to train, whether it was morning or evening, sometimes we don't have a choice. So again, like I said, from a coaching perspective, that's one of the first things I talk to people about is what are their barriers to training, whether that's time, what days they can train, things like that. And obviously I have to work those programs around their availability. So again, I think, yes, read them, take on board the advice and take on board some of the points they mention. But again, in terms of research, I certainly, for me, I'm on the side of that fasted cardio has been debunked as not really a thing anymore in terms of you're not going to burn more fat running fasted. if you focus more on pace, that's probably more likely going to be the way that you help build the body to sort of utilize fat stores. So using things like MAF heart rate and all that sort of stuff to dictate, again, the fat burning zone doesn't really exist, but obviously if you're going at those slower paces for longer periods of times, you may be promoting a bit more utilization of fat as fuel. But again, we've got to think it from a fuel perspective rather than a sort of weight loss perspective. The main reason that we would want to do that is obviously to fuel our run, so we don't have to take on board as much carbohydrate during those longer runs, rather than thinking of it, well, I'm trying to burn fat and things like that. So I'd think you've got to put that to one side and use that as a byproduct of running rather than the sole focus of it.
Yeah, definitely. Some very good points there. I think it's critical as a coach. Obviously you are to adapt to the student, so you can't kind of force down a schedule that's just not going to work for them. Like if they're working, 9 to 5, they obviously can't train at 10 a.m. or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very good point. I'm just hearing the thunder and lightning in the background. It's pretty loud at the minute.
Yeah, it's been coming across mine for a bit now. But yeah, so, and again, obviously with the evening side of things, so because a lot of people tend to have those 9 to 5s, it's not like a lot of people are going to actually be able to train at this optimum window of sort of 5 to 6 p.m. where the core body temperature is at its highest. If they are training in the evenings, it's probably going to be more like sort of after work, so 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. But then again, you're starting to get to the realms of if you are training later, yes, obviously there's some benefits to that, but there's also some negatives of, especially for me, if I train really late, I really struggle to get to sleep. And we talked about this in the sleep episode, trying not to train just before you go to bed because of that parasympathetic nervous system response. So, again, especially if you're doing a hard running session, sort of 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, just before you're about to go to bed, and then you're up early, that can massively affect your sleep pattern and then affect your recovery. So and that's where we're getting fitter. So again, if you're training in the evenings because, again, you've read something about training in the evenings better than the mornings, but then it's messing up your sleep, I'd argue that those benefits are negated because sleep is king in terms of recovery and adaptation of fitness. So I would always, like you just said before, prioritize that and your nutrition and stuff before worrying about these little micro changes to training schedule.
100%. Like I've done it in the past, focusing on the kind of 5 or 10% of things you should be doing instead of the 90%, which is like the main training, sleep and nutrition. So, you can get drawn in easily to all these things like, oh, you have to do this. This shoe's going to make you 100% quicker. Like, just silly things like that. And yeah, you're right about the fasted running fat zone kind of thing doesn't really exist to a certain extent. One thing I would say though, just from my experience over the last few years, when I've done fasting, I know we spoke about this briefly on a episode in the past. It has decreased my appetite for the rest of the day. I know this can be different for different people, but that obviously helps me keep a kind of calorie control if I want to, if I'm trying to lose weight. So yeah, maybe the actual process of the fasted run in that moment you're not in a fat zone per se, but for the rest of the day, I've found myself, I know it can be different, that it can be really useful, to be fair.
But yeah, but that's the key difference that you just highlighted yourself, is that people are selling that fasted cardio is all about fat loss. If you run fasted, you're going to promote, fat loss and things like that. But actually, like you said there, running fasted may help, keep you more sated throughout the rest of the day, or like you said, it may help you consume less calories. But then that's what it needs to be touted as. It's not touted as all of a sudden it's this magical thing. It's just that you find in maybe most of the population that if they run in the morning without eating, then they eat fewer calories in the day, which if they continue that over a period of time leads to that calorie deficit, which then leads to fat loss. And that's the key thing, is you've already established the difference there.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's so much rubbish out there. It's actually shameful, to be honest. But it's just something as simple as like intermittent fasting. Say you eat between 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. People think, or they learn, or they're educated that, oh, as long as I've fasted, I can eat whatever I want during this period. But it's just simply not true. If you're over that calorie maintenance number and you just go all out eating pizza and stuff, you will put on weight because you'll be in a surplus.
Yeah.
So you just got to be educated. It's pretty simple, really, but it's just there's a lot of people selling stuff and a lot of rubbish out there, unfortunately.
And the problem is I actually, again, I'm stealing this. I just saw it come up on my feed this morning. Um, it is a simple process, especially fat loss, but it doesn't mean
Mm.
that it's easy. That's the key.
Yeah,
It's simple in terms of what you have to do, but it's not easy in terms of what you have to do because it's hard. It's hard being in a calorie deficit. It's hard making sure that you don't go over that number. It's hard tracking what you're eating, especially if, so many companies and stuff put labels on their food that's there to deceive you and stuff like that.
yeah,
It's a hard process. So the science behind it is simple to follow. Be in a calorie deficit. It's the application that's
yeah.
challenging. That's the reason why so many people take advantage of selling you these quick fixes, or instead of going, oh, you don't have to worry about making it all complex like that. All you've got to do is run without
Mm.
eating, or, train to your body type and all this sort of stuff, which is all just based on rubbish to sell products. But because everyone wants quick fixes and obviously they want
That's
the
the
easy way
thing.
out, that's the reason why those people do well and we sell all these things.
It's
Um,
it's it's really tricky because it's so sensitive as well, and you can if you're not kind of in this kind of sphere of like diet and fitness and not looking at it all the time. I had a friend show me a diagram of a chocolate bar and an avocado, and obviously avocados are high in calories, and it was higher than the chocolate bar. And they sent me this and said, "So I shouldn't eat avocados because it's higher in calories. The chocolate bar's healthy, and it's obviously like yes, it's got more calories, but the health benefits and the healthy fats and all that, it's just incomparable." But people say that and think, right, no avocados, gonna stay away from that.
yeah.
So yeah, it is tricky as you say. It is tricky,
It's
but
again, it's because we keep associating health with just calorie content. That's the
yeah,
problem. Calorie content is just a number. It's just a unit of energy. All right. It's nothing to do with the buildup of that food itself in terms of nutrients and vitamins and things like that, or false products that have been put in something. So when you're looking at, it's not even a comparison. Looking at an avocado to a piece of chocolate, it's not a
yeah,
comparison. That one has got vitamins and nutrients that are vital for functioning of the body, and one has a feel good factor that's potentially gives you comfort. Both have value, but they're not comparable. Do you know what I mean? They both have a
yeah.
place in someone's diet, but you've got to then think about why you're eating one thing, why you're eating the other. It's not just comparing these things, because I see them all the time. And another one is fruit. Because fruit's high in sugar, there are people then
Mm,
going, well, I shouldn't eat fruit, but I can then go and eat sugary sweets and stuff like that. It's
yeah.
again, people demonize things to help them sell products, or to help,
Mm,
like I said, give misinformation. It's just such a shame. But yeah, it's a simple process. And
yeah.
and like I said, it's for me, going back. Obviously, we've gone on a bit of tangent, but it's going back to the time of day to train. It's the same concept. It's focus on the things that are easy to manage. Like I said, if you've got a consistent program and you're working when you need to work, you're recovering when you need to recover, you're getting good sleep, you're eating a reasonable diet, you will progress regardless of
Yeah.
what time of day you train, regardless of
Yeah.
what shoes you wear, regardless of what kit you have. All right. If you work hard, stick to the program as prescribed. So again, if you're getting a coach program, you're probably missing out straight away. If you're just running the same pace every day, or just sprinting every day, or doing tempo runs every day, you've not got that structure, then obviously you need to look at that first if you are plateauing. But if you're following a structured program and you're sticking to it as prescribed, especially when it comes to easy runs, if a coach is giving you an easy run, it needs to be easy so it allows for recovery. The reason they put it in there is because of obviously helping you
Yeah.
get to that super compensation phase, all that sort of jazz. If you're sticking to all those basics, you will progress. You will
Yeah.
recover, you will adapt, you'll get fitter. And then you repeat that cycle based on, again, those new levels of fitness, those new assessments, and you repeat that and repeat that and repeat that. If
100%.
you're not doing those things first, forget about everything else.
Yeah. It's like as we were saying before, focus on the 95%, the important stuff. And if you get to that elite level, if you're lucky enough to be that good, then you can look at your short length and you can look
Yeah,
at your footwear and that kind of thing. But
yeah,
until then, it's really not going to matter at all.
absolutely, mate. If you're a mid-pack to rear-pack runner, all right, which
Mm.
most of us are, well, I know I am. I know you might not be because you're a rapid little thing, but if you're mid-pack to rear-pack, all right, focus on the big gains, focus on the low-hanging fruit, we call it, all right, and certainly save your money when it comes to jazzy kit and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
All right, just focus on hard work. That's what we seem to be forgetting more and more, all right, as these generations go on, is that we just seem to be focusing on what's the easiest way I can get to the same level as all these famous people that we see, because because Instagram and Facebook and all that give it an opinion that these guys and girls just achieve greatness. They don't show all the grit and determination, hard work they have to put in the background, the lack of family time, the lack of sleep, traveling all over the place, etc., etc. It makes it out like their lives are really easy and that it's easy for them to achieve greatness in their sport or fitness. It's hard work, and that's what we seem to be forgetting. So we think, all right, all we've got to do is focus on all these new bits of research and new bits of data and all that stuff, and I can be like these elite people, rather than, well, actually, no, think about someone like Killian Jornet. He puts in like 1,000 hours a year of training, and I was when I was first reading about that through the Uphill Athlete book, which was he co-wrote. I was looking at my training for the last couple of years, and I'd be lucky to hit 400 in a year. Do you know what I mean? And he's doing over 1,000. So how can I ever think that I'm going to be as good as him if I don't first put in the work?
Yeah.
That's 600 hours extra training I'd need to put in to be able to think about trying to get to his sort of level. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to think of that commitment and dedication that these athletes show. And like I said, they focus on the basics just like the rest of us.
100%. Yeah, there's no easy fix or quick fix. You got to put in the work, and you got to do it consistently for years, really, if not decades, to get where you want. I know we've gone on a bit of a tangent there, but it was quite interesting anyway.
Well, yeah, it still relates back to the time of day, because it's a great question. But like I said, it's obviously take on board some of the advantages and disadvantages we've mentioned, but at the same time, don't worry about it. If you've got the flexibility to experiment, then do so, because like you said, you might be finding you're missing out on feeling a little bit better if you're training the mornings at the moment. You want to try the evenings. If you've got the flexibility, give it a go. But if you haven't, don't worry about it. You'll still be able to progress. You'll still be able to get fit regardless of what time you train.
100%. It's going to be a minuscule difference whatever you do. So don't worry about that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think that's a good time to end it there. I guess we can maybe expand on these kind of mini topics in future episodes. Definitely let us know, firstly, your thoughts on the Parkrun return, and also what time you train. Do you prefer morning? Do you prefer afternoon? And let us know why. Is it because of your work or anything like that? But that'd be interesting to know.
Definitely.
Any final words, Lee?
No, I mean, again, good topics, and it'd be good just again keep getting some feedback from people on what they want us to hear us talk about, really. And we'll obviously figure out what we're going to chat about next week.
Brilliant. All right. Well, thanks again, Lee. And I can hear a dog in the background.
The dog's throwing up a hairball just to finish up the conversation.
What a perfect way to end it. All right. Well, we'll end it there. Thanks again for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.